Assalamu alaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh and good morning. Today our topic is the Asian financial crisis, the Malaysian experience. The Asian financial crisis that began in middle of 1997 is a major event in our history. It was an accident waiting to happen, but it didn't happen because of the way we approach it and the way we resolve it quite unconventionally and in a very unorthodox manner. But to understand the Asian financial crisis of 97, 98, it is best that we see it in context. In the context of Malaysia as a newly independent country and how we grew and developed and suddenly the Asian financial crisis happened and how it affected us then, how it is affecting us now, and what lessons we learned. We became an independent country in 1957 after many years of being under various colonial masters, including the Portuguese, the Dutch, the British, Japanese. But in 1957, we became an independent country. That was great. But at that time, the people were mainly living in poor. More than 50% of the people in 1957, Malaysian citizens, were poor. That is, 1 in 2 families were poor. And we depended almost entirely for our economic development on rubber and tin. And we did not quite diversify. So when we became independent, and we became independent without shedding blood and in a very nice and good, friendly way with the UK, we carried on with the policies of the United Kingdom because we had no experience how to run a country. Because for hundreds of years we have been run by others. And the policy that the British had for us was a policy called laissez-faire. Laissez-faire basically means you let the market decide what the market wants to do, and then you just make sure that there's law and order and discipline and that sort of thing. So we carried on the policy and served us quite well. And in 1969, unfortunately, people became very angry because nothing seems to be changing. The poverty rate that was 50% in 1957, it just came down to 49.2% in 1969 and 1970. So in 1970, we rethought the whole economic policy for Malaysia, and we came up with a new economic policy, NEP, where we not only concentrate on growth, which is what laissez-faire said we should do. So we throw away laissez-faire. We say we will do growth and development. Not only growth, but also develop the country and also make sure that whatever we gain, the country gains, should be distributed in a better way so that the people who are handicapped get a better share. So the cake, we expand the cake, but distribute the cake more fairly. So that worked, and Malaysia started to grow and develop, and we gave so much importance to education. Schools were built everywhere, hospitals everywhere, and we diversified from rubber and tin to various other commodities, timber and cocoa and palm oil and etc. And we were doing very much better, and the economy was growing in big numbers. But in 1986, something else happened. All the commodity prices collapsed at the same time, and we were just exporting commodities. So we had a major economic crisis, and at that one time, the government could hardly pay salaries and all that. But we overcame it also. by encouraging FDIs to come in, by relaxing the rules, and also by making a choice, a deliberate choice to diversify away from commodities to also manufacturing. And manufacturing became a very important part of our economic growth and also very important part of our employment. And so after 86 to 96, they were the golden years. It was beautiful. Everything was good. Inflation was less than 2%. Unemployment was non-existent. The stock market was booming. Investment was coming in. And one would say that things cannot go wrong. Everyone was happy. And it was very rosy years. And that is where I want to bring in the Asian financial crisis. Having put the context in, what happened all of a sudden in the middle of 1997, we found that everything was going wrong. All the effort that we had put in to develop Malaysia seemed to be going down the drains. The stock market, where some prices of stocks were $22, 22 ringgit per share, came down to 2 ringgit. And the ringgit, which was stable at 250, around 250 for 10 years, went up to almost 4.8, almost double. And inflation was very high, and people lost confidence. But ironically and tragically, it was nothing to do with us. We didn't do anything wrong. It started in Thailand, where they said the government did something wrong, and they started attacking Thailand. And they said that because Thailand is close to Malaysia, and Indonesia is close to Malaysia, and Korea is close to Malaysia, and it went from Thailand to Indonesia and South Korea. And so they also felt that they want to attack us. Attack us basically meaning they borrow our ringgit and sell our ringgit. So when they borrow our ringgit, sell our ringgit weaken. And they borrow our stock market, sell our stock market collapse. And then what unfortunately happened was that the government of the day did not quite understand what was happening. And they listened, they got IMF and World Bank to come. And they listened to IMF and World Bank. So IMF and World Bank said, oh, this is very complicated situation. You should increase interest rate. You should reduce don't allow the market participant to borrow. Government, you should consolidate and don't have an expansionary monetary policy or expansionary fiscal policy. And at that time, the government followed, which is crazy. It's actually nonsense. The government did wrong. The government absolutely let the ball fall. And things were getting worse. A bad situation was made worse. So at that time, I was no more in Bank Negara. I left Bank Negara in 94. I was in the private sector. So Tun Mahathir asked me to come and help him. In fact, the first meeting I had with Tun Mahathir was in Buenos Aires, Argentina. He was traveling and he just wanted to talk and couldn't wait for him to come back. And I flew to Buenos Aires and we met and we spoke. So he asked me to come back and help. So I came back and helped him to come up with a package of measures to overcome the crisis. And this was implemented on 1st September 1998. It is called the unorthodox measures. It was based on my notes to him, which is in a book called Notes to the Prime Minister, written over a year, on exactly what is happening and what we should do, etc. And he believed it. And he convinced the others to believe it too. And so we implemented it. Basically, what we did was, it's quite complicated, but basically, what we did was we fixed the exchange rate to 3.8. And then we did not allow them to borrow ringgit to sell. And we did not allow the foreigners to borrow ringgit to sell or to borrow stock market to to sell. Of course, they can borrow ringgit for genuine purposes, etc. They can trade in the stock market, but they cannot borrow to sell and manipulate. Because the people who were manipulating were hedge funds that could leverage 20 times. If they have 1 billion, they can borrow 20 billion. And if there are 10 of them, is 200 billion. Our central bank reserve at the time only 20 billion. There's no way you can fight them. You have to change the rules. And that is an important lesson for us. If the rules are stacked against us, why should we be following the rules? That's what the government did initially before we came in. But anyway, that's a good story. And immediately after we introduced the unauthorized measures on September 1, 1998, things became okay. And I went back to Bank Negara, which I left 94. I went back again after the measures. I went back in 1998. And we started thinking of, okay, we had this problem. How do we take the opportunity to reset the country? Because there's a financial crisis. You have undertaken a set of measures to overcome it. Great. But you should never let calamity go to waste. The calamity also gives you opportunity to do a lot of other things which you would not normally do during good times. So we did a reset. But before we do a reset, we had to clear all the teething problems, and we had cleared it. And one of the things that happened during the crisis was the property market tanked. People were not buying properties, and property developers were losing money. So I organized, so Tun Mahathir said, why don't you organize a property fair? I never knew, I'm not in the property business. And I never was and never am. But I thought, yes, it's good, let's organize. So we organized a property fair. I was given a target of 500 million to sell. I must say, because otherwise why the government go out to organize a property fair? We sold more than 3 billion. And the property market went up, and it's been going up since then. There was a break. That was one. Number two, we consolidated the banking system to make sure that next time when this crisis happened, the banking system would be stronger. We had 45 or so banking groups then, before the crisis. We consolidated them. When I was in Bank Negara, that was my main task, among my tasks, is to consolidate the banking system into 10 banks, which we did. And then, of course, I left Bank Negara, then I came back to work as economic advisor to Mahathir, and then became Minister of Finance, and then became Minister of Finance too, and then became Economic Minister. So we used that period of some 10 years or so after the crisis, 13 years or so after the crisis, to also carry on the resetting, to make things better, to establish new institutions, etc. So that's an important lesson that crisis taught us. Never let it go to waste, and use it to make things better. But the most important lesson the crisis taught us is that don't necessarily believe people who you think should know. Because that's what we did the first time the crisis happened, and before I came in, the economic aspects of the government, the economic part of the government, believe in the IMF, believe in the World Bank. They thought World Bank, IMF should know. But the advice they were giving were nonsense. It was making things worse. So the lesson is that you must always think for yourself, because these guys, you think they know, they don't know. They have one policy fit all, whatever fits. And whatever policy they've developed in Africa or Latin America, they think is good for you, which is not true. Because every country has its own peculiar sets of circumstances. So anyway, that's one. Number two, you must have the confidence in yourself that you can do it, and you must have the bosses, in this case Mahathir, to give you the confidence. Say, okay, you do it. We can do it. We didn't borrow a single cent from IMF or World Bank. We were the only country that never borrowed. So that was a good aspect of our history. At the time when we faced a crisis, an accident waiting to happen, but it didn't happen because we showed them what Malaysia is, what we had. The experience over many decades, capable leadership, unity of people were supportive, and everyone was happy at the end. And stock market boomed, and housing developers, houses were sold, and people's life became much better. Okay, that's it. Thank you.